love triathlon, I also love ultra running. So when I heard that a top professional ultra runner had qualified for the Ironman World Championships, I got a bit excited. Yes, Lucy Bartholomew finished 10th at the incredible Ultra Trail Mont Blanc earlier this summer. Now, 6 months before that, she did her first triathlon and she qualified for Kona, and I was not going to miss this opportunity. So I reached out and I promised that if I rode with her on the Queen K and on the Ironman course, that in return, I could pick her brains on all things ultra trail running. Well, Lucy, welcome to Kona. You have literally just been here 24 hours, yeah?
Literally about 24 hours, yep.
What are your first impressions on the island?
Oh, stepping off the plane, I was like, this place is one big sauna. The heat really got me yesterday. But I mean, the vibe of Kona and the Ironman is like just abundant. Like, it's so incredible to be a part of it, to see it filled with so many fierce, strong women. Yeah, I just feel really honoured, actually.
Oh, well, I think the triathlon community is honoured to have you here. I know I'm like mega excited to chat to you and pick your brains on all things ultra running, but first, whilst we're out on the bike, I thought I'd just, chat a little bit about your triathlon expectations and just like how you've got here. So this is going to be just your second Ironman.
Second Ironman.
Second ever triathlon.
Second ever triathlon, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a COVID idea to do the Ironman when ultra running shut down and I couldn't travel. I was looking at races that interested me in Australia, and I've done every trail race there really is. So I kind of looked beyond trail running and ultra running, and the Ironman came up, and I was just so enamored by it. And so I went over, did Ironman Busselton in West Australia, and never thought that Kona was even on my horizon, but here I am.
And but you obviously had to make that decision quite quickly, like on the next day, don't you, to come. What swayed you?
I think just, this is a race that I've followed with my dad. I've watched on TV, and to have the opportunity is like, just, I think everything happens for a reason, and the world gives you opportunities, the universe delivers you circumstances, and you have a fork in the road, yes or no. And I just felt like it was a big fat yes.
And Lucy, obviously you spend most of your time running. How much time have you spent on your bike? I see you've got a unique setup. Not opting for the TT.
No, yeah, probably not enough time on the bike. I've used it in the lead up to UTMB before this race to complement my running. But it definitely hasn't been a focus. And then since UTMB to recover, I've used the bike a little bit, but I'm fully aware that probably not for 180 kilometers worth. So I've kind of gone for the comfort over performance on this bike.
And talking of like comfort over performance, I know you've got a bike computer there, but when we were chatting earlier, you said you might not even use that on race day. Like, how are you going to pace the 180 kilometers of bike riding?
Just purely off I know my body so well. I've been doing endurance stuff for 12 years, and so I've got a pretty good gauge on what is sustainable, what I can maintain, and I'm fully aware that I'm getting off this bike and running a marathon. So I'm going to be running into my forte, and I want to do that to the best of my ability.
Well, I can't wait to pick your brains on what we can learn from you and all things about your trail running background. So we'll head back, pop the bikes in, and we'll catch up with you in a bit.
Perfect, can't wait.
Well, at last, Lucy, I get to pick your brains about something that I know you know a lot about. I mean, obviously you're here absorbing everything and learning about triathlon, but I think us as triathletes can learn a lot from you as an ultra runner. I mean, can you rewind to sort of how long have you been in the sport and a little bit of your trajectory into where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. It's been fun hanging out, though.
It's been great. I have loved chatting to you, and hopefully we can share some of this now.
Totally. I started running, as part of team sports at school, and then kind of found my love for, the person in class that talks too much had to run laps, and I was like, I kind of like the laps,
I'm so with you.
And so I was that kid. I watched my dad do marathons. He then signed up for his first 100K. I was 14, he was 49, and then the next year I signed up for 100K for us to do together. So I was 15, he was 50.
Wow.
And that's where it started. So part of the rules of me being so young to do that race was we had to run together. I then returned the next year at 16, and they gave me license to run by myself. And I ran 3.5 hours faster and came second in the females. And it was kind of like, oh, I think there's something here. I think we can do something with this.
I mean, at 16, well, at 15 to run 100K, it's just crazy. Like, you know, in our sport, we see coming into Ironman athletes as, you know, even professionals is late 20s on the whole. I mean, Lucy Charles-Barkley was and Taylor Neer, but like at the younger end when they've started. But I mean, what even gave you, was it your dad that inspired you? But how did you have that belief that you could run that far?
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things was I was blissfully unaware of how far that was. You know, people say I wouldn't drive that far. Well, I was too young to drive, so I wasn't driving. I didn't know, you know. Time was irrelevant to me. I didn't have a watch. I wasn't measuring things. And, you know, when I went up and saw my dad do his first 100K, I kind of ran from checkpoint to checkpoint to see him. And it was cool to see the elites who just looked so amazing and swift on the trails. And then my dad and that middle of the pack but it was really the back of the pack, just men and women of all different shapes and sizes. And they were walking through these trails with like a can of Coke, a handful of chips. And I was like, this is a sport, like this is incredible. And I think that's what really inspired me of like, if they can do it, why can't I? And yeah, age was never a barrier that I kind of saw.
I mean, that's incredible. You're still only 27 and you're still one of the youngest, now obviously a pro. Can you kind of run through the highlights of that those 11 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's been lots of highlights and lowlights. It's been a roller coaster.
Include them all,
Yeah, I think, you know, I really kind of shot onto the scene when I won Ultra Trail Australia on my 21st birthday.
Oh.
It was the most incredible experience in race and probably my highlight in my memory bank. And then from there kind of came third at Western States, which is a massive race in the US, fifth at the TDS, 125 kilometer at UTMB. Then it was kind of like a down year of 2019 where I just couldn't recreate the year of 2018. And then 2021, 22 was obviously COVID, so we were locked down. And then just the past year has been kind of, I just came 10th at UTMB, had a first place at Tarawera, and first place at Ultra Trail Cape Town. So it's just been kind of like a roller coaster of the last few years.
And you know, yes, you had that fall, and obviously in triathlon, like so much can go wrong. And I think that's why we often, as triathletes, look at running and go, oh, running's so straightforward. It's just like one foot in front of the other. But how have you, at starting so young, you know, we tend to see people come into longer distances, you get older and almost like stronger, and your body has built up that resilience, your mind has built up that resilience. But how has your body coped with doing so many miles at such a young age, whilst it's still growing, whilst it's still developing?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting process because not many have done it before me, so I didn't really have like a blueprint of what this could look like. But, you know, I really am proud of the fact that, you know, I've, touch wood, have never had like a bone injury. Amazing. Or any kind of like, I've had the tendinitis that comes from like overuse, but if you run for 27 hours, probably something's gonna get off. But it's, yeah, I think I'm really proud because for me, what breaks before my body is my mindset. If I can feel myself not enjoying it day after day after day, okay, one day it's not a problem, but continuously, I know that I could be on the brink of having something more long-term happen. And so I really tune into that and I'll pull back. And that's kind of when I started self-coaching myself and listening to that kind of inner dialogue of like, you know, let's play the long game here. And my body's responded really well for that. So, yeah.
I mean, that sounds so mature. It's easy to say that. And I think it's something that, again, triathletes are like very guilty of not doing. And you can kind of then go do more of one the other sport if you're not doing that one. And it's so easy to kind of almost not notice because you've got the three different sports. But coming into triathlon, I mean, your first ever triathlon was an Ironman and you did it in 10 hours 20. Like, what do you think you brought from ultra running that helped you have that performance with not that much prep, as you said, and, you know, on a road bike? Yeah. What did you, I mean, what can we learn from you as an ultra? What did you bring that gave you that performance?
I think when you do anything for your first time, you can often have a lot of like blissfully unaware dumb luck, and I do believe that like I didn't know all the things that could go wrong. And so I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna swim, bike, and then I get to finish with the sport that I'm most confident and I know how to suffer in. And so I looked forward to that. I kind of see it as like entree is the swim, main is the bike, and dessert, which is so, so sweet, is the run. And, I think my mindset, I remember talking to triathletes before that Ironman, and they were all kind of like, oh, the marathon's the worst part. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't really agree. But, and so when I racked that bike, I was just like, oh, thank goodness. Like, I was pumped and I was ready and I was excited. And I think that having that mental ability to just kind of be curious about each sport and go through that, just take it chunk by chunk. When you run 100 miles, it's, you've got to break that down somehow, and you don't have a change of discipline to do it. So you really have to learn that kind of head talk and that ability to, okay, I'm just gonna like get to that tree, get to that aid station. I'm gonna try and just like move through this as purposefully as I can. And as long as I'm moving forward, it's a good sign. It's kind of just listening to that inner voice and not letting it take over and overwhelm you with, it's a huge day in Ironman, it's a huge day in Ultra. And so, just being able to break that down, eat an elephant one bite at a time.
And have you ever found that in an Ultra? Have you ever had, like, obviously not a complete meltdown because your only DNF is when you've fallen over and had concussion, but has that inner voice got too strong at some point and you've been close to having a mini break, or you can almost have a mini breakdown, so you go through so much, but how close has that inner voice got to overruling your performance?
Yeah, pretty close, and you dance with that devil out there because it's you in your headspace, especially on the trails and in ultras where you don't have people lining the roads for you. It really is just you in it. But then at the same time, if you want to get out of that position, you're going to have to either go one way or the other way to the checkpoint. So, and usually by the time you've gotten there, the people can talk you into continuing on.
Once you've left it, you're not turning around.
Yeah, and so, pretty close. But I think that it's amazing how we can have those moments of self-doubt and, self-deprecation and bring ourselves down and think about why we're doing this and how come and we're not strong enough, we can't do this. And then if you can just endure that patch, usually on the other side is a pretty big upswing, and then you suddenly realize I've just unlocked like a whole new potential. One of my favorite quotes is, new level, new devil. And it's kind of like in every, in this Ironman tomorrow, there'll be something will happen out there that'll be like, I don't think I can push through this, and I will push through this. And through that, I'll unlock that next level of like, I haven't even touched my potential if I thought that was all I could endure.
And this is very probably hard for you to compare, but what do you think is harder? And I mean, I know you're doing them in very different capacities. One as a professional, one as a relatively newbie to the sport. But what do you think is harder, an Ironman or probably 100K is closer to the time difference?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really very individual because for me, running 100 kilometers is my safe place.
Okay.
I was saying this the other day, like I know how to navigate tummy issues or body issues. I've run with issues and ailments like that, but I have so much anxiety around something like someone kicking me in the face in the water and something happening to my bike that I just don't know how to fix. Mm-hmm. And that kind of inexperience, and I haven't, to be fair, educated myself probably enough to have that relief and that kind of stuff. So I would say the Ironman is harder.
Yeah.
But I know that triathletes would disagree with me.
I think if we asked everyone tomorrow night when they were finishing, that they would definitely be disagreeing. And what do you touched on there, like you're good at dealing with stomach issues and things. I think that's something that fascinates me and fascinates a lot of our viewers. And in triathlon, it's almost easier because you can do a lot of your fueling on the bike. But when you're fueling on your feet for 12 hours, 24 hours, like however long these races are, like how have you, what's your approach?
Yeah, I am very relaxed on my nutrition plan, and I really lean on the fact that I can listen to my body, and that my kind of philosophy is eat enough always, eat more sometimes, and eat not enough never, And so it's just kind of nibble, nibble, sip, sip. Something's better than nothing. As long as you can get some form of calorie, electrolyte, salt, then you're moving yourself in the positive direction. Otherwise, you're self-harming and you're not allowing yourself to tap into that potential. So I think it's, I try and be consistent. You can put a time on it every half an hour just to have something. But usually at about half an hour, it's when I get thirsty. It's when I'm kind of like, I'm kind of hungry. I could use something right now. And especially in trail running, like if you start to trip over things and not lift your feet, it's kind of like a sign of usually you just need some sugar in that bloodstream and you can start lifting those feet again. So trying to preempt that and help your future self by just being continuous and monotonous, and whatever works. It can start off as gels, which everyone thinks that that's what they're going to run on, and everyone ends on Coke. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. And what do what's your division of sports nutrition products versus real food? Like, how do you balance that? What's your go-to?
In an ultra?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, I always start with real food because generally, like, you're fresher. It kind of paces me. Like if I have to eat like a sandwich or something, it just slows me down, and it's part of the pacing process. And then I kind of, as I start to fatigue, the race goes on, I go to gels, which are quicker to the bloodstream. Don't have to chew it, don't have to digest it, which is actually backflipped of what most people do. Most people go in gun-ho with having gels, and then they end up on chips and, a sandwich because they're sitting down at a checkpoint, probably a little bit overdone on the gels.
Yeah.
So I flip it, and that's kind of worked for me in my experience.
That's interesting. And I think, I don't know how you answer this question, but I'm, here going, pinching myself and sat with someone who's just come 10th at UTMB, and that is incredible. And you've been at the top of your game for so long, but what makes you such a good ultra trail runner? Like, what are those qualities that make you so consistent and so good?
I think, I have an unrelenting optimism about what could be next. I think I'm driven into ultra running through curiosity, and that's kind of that's my why in my sport, and it's why I'm doing an Ironman and doing UTMB and seeing how they go together, and because I'm just so curious about how you can put the jigsaw together. But also, I just, even in those dark times out there when things get really hard, to me, it never seems inconceivable. It's kind of like, this is rough, this really sucks, but I have an ability that doesn't allow me to forecast that's how the rest of the race is gonna be. I'm like, okay, this moment in time, let's put it in a box, let's leave it where it is and let's move forward. And that's kind of always been my dad has always, when he's run with me, even when I was young, I remember him saying to me, Lucy, at 30 kilometers into a marathon, you hit this thing called a wall. This is the story that we've all been told. And he said when I ran my first 50K, I didn't have a watch, and he kind of watched his watch go up to 30 Ks, and he was like, you just didn't even flag, you didn't know. And it's because I didn't know. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know the stats. But people will tell you their narratives, the stories that they've experienced or they've heard. That doesn't mean that it's yours. And so I think that ability to just be like, that's cool that your Ironman was really, really tough. It doesn't mean mine has to be exactly like that.
So it sounds like it's all about that power of the mind for you, and your body just follows.
Totally, yeah. And that's what you realize, is that ultra running and endurance events are 90% mental and 10% physical. It really is just being able to be with those voices inside and realize that they are not you, and that your body is, if you've done the training, done the work, and you believe in that, then you can really start to have confidence in what you can do.
And I know, just a very quick sort of more not sciencey, because I know you're not in the sciencey mode, but say you're 2 months out from your A race, your big ultra of the year, and you're not yet on location, so you're not running those trails days. What would the typical training week look like? Do you do strength work? Do you do any faster work? What is a kind of typical training week?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously varies a lot, but I will generally I run every day of a week. I kind of have breaks in 2-week cycles for a day off. And since starting to do triathlon, I've been bringing more of that into my world and cycling a lot more, and days that I would normally double run. So I'll do my session of running in the morning, which is usually up to 2 hours with maybe some intervals in it. instead of then going for like a 30, 40-minute shakeout run, I'll hop on the bike and get that cardio and get that motion is lotion kind of effect, but without the impact.
Okay.
And that's really kind of helped me. But I generally train like, you know, up to 20 hours of running a week. And that's kind of shared amongst long runs, easy runs and doubles. And then strength training is twice a week. One kind of heavier, one more mobility and plyometric.
And what sort of mileage are you doing in a typical week? I know it obviously depends on how much elevation, but what's, you know, typically?
I usually sit at about 100 miles a week of running, yeah.
That's
Not at the moment.
Yeah, I hope not. And what is next? You talk about that drive of always wanting more, being curious. What's maybe next year? Like, you know, obviously you're about to do the Ironman World Championships, but will we see more triathlon? Is ultra, like, there's a big focus next year on ultra?
Yeah, so after this, I think I want to get a gravel bike and go off-road a little bit. I really enjoyed the triathlon. It's taught me so much. But in February, I want to race a golden ticket race in the US that gets me back into Western States. I got to come top 3 female to get that. And then kind of all pathways lead to trying to run Western States to the best of my abilities. Beyond that, who knows? But all I do know is that triathlon isn't leaving me forever. I want to keep the training. I want to do some of the 70.3. Like, I never even did any of the shorter stuff to build. And so I think that would be really fun to jump in with no expectation.
If you're getting into gravel riding, you need to find some like gravel triathlon, like endurance triathlons when the run is off-road, because that
would be my ideal. Yeah, for sure. I would love to do like Xterra or something like that.
Well, we'll keep enticing you, because the triathlon world definitely wants to see more of you, Lucy, and I'm sure our viewers do too. Well, best of luck in your Ironman tomorrow. Just go out there and have fun. I know you will. We'll be cheering, and we look forward to following you next year with all of your running endeavours.
Thank you. It's been awesome to share all 3 disciplines with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I must admit, I wasn't going to do any talking on the running with you. So at least thanks for letting me ride with you. Well, a massive thank you to Lucy. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this insight. And yeah, I mean, I could chat to Lucy all day. But if you do have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I can always give her a nudge and see if she can.
Of course I can. I can hop in for sure.
That would be wonderful. And yeah, if you've enjoyed it, we'd love your support. Give us a like and go and check out Lucy's social channels as well.